Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. G7 leaders call for temporary pauses in fighting to allow humanitarian aid as Israeli forces operate in the heart of Gaza City. Another 48-hour nationwide blockade underway today, demanding fresh polls in the country. And in Cricket World Cup, wooden spoon holders, England and the Netherlands lock horns in the game for the Pride. On to details now. Group of 7 of G7 foreign ministers continue to discuss ways to revitalize peace efforts in the West Asia as they meet for the second and the final day of the summit in Tokyo. The ministers are expected to mention the necessity of a humanitarian pause in the fighting in the Gaza Strip in their joint statement. DD India correspondent Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
Yeah, well, they've effectively said that, they are aiming for some kind of joint statement by the end of the summit on Wednesday. And there's not much controversy amongst them. It's far more simple for the G7 to get in line on that issue compared to pursuing their own very complicated individual relations with a country like China. But at the working dinner on Tuesday night, which was their first group session, that did conclude in a condemnation of Hamas for the surprise attack on October 7th. There was a call to release hostages and, of course, some discussion of humanitarian aid. You mentioned things that were and were not discussed. What was not discussed was the death toll which the UN put out yesterday in Palestine of 10,000 people. A great percentage is believed to be civilians, journalists, UN workers and children. They also did not discuss the proportionality or legality of Israel's month of bombing of the Gaza Strip, targeting individual ambulances, hospitals, bakeries and refugee camps. Yet to be seen if those are going to be issues on the table for the rest of the talks on Wednesday. But certainly a pat on the back by the G7 and Japan included for Japan's, for example, $65 million of humanitarian aid that's going to Gaza.
Meanwhile, in an attempt to neutralize terrorism in Gaza, Israeli forces are now fighting off Hamas at its home. In a video address on Tuesday, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that their forces are operating from inside Gaza as it pressed on with a month-long offensive against Hamas. Netanyahu also warned Hezbollah to rethink before choosing sides with Hamas. Israel launched a counter-offensive against Hamas after the terrorist group attacked southern Israel on October 7th, killing 1,400 people and seized several hostages.
Gaza City is encircled. We are operating inside it. We are increasing pressure on Hamas every hour, every day. We have killed thousands of terrorists above ground and below ground. If Hezbollah chooses to join the war, it'd be making a big mistake. No ceasefire without the release of our hostages.
While countering Hamas's attacks, Israel's armed forces have struck Hamas targets in Gaza near a hospital and a school. In the video released by Israeli military on Tuesday, the Israel Defense Forces said that aerial assistance killed a terrorist cell hiding inside a mosque. They further added that the strike was in retaliation to the launch of anti-tank missiles by Hamas at IDF troops from several locations, some adjacent to the hospitals. Well, not only from Hamas, but Israel continues to face strikes from Yemen's Houthis Group too. The group claimed to have launched a new batch of drones against sensitive targets inside Israel. Houthis military spokesperson blamed Israel for instability in the West Asia, saying the circle of conflict in the region was being expanded by its continued crimes. He further said that the Houthis would continue to mount attacks until the Israeli aggression stops. Meanwhile, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Walter Turk is visiting West Asia. The UN High Commissioner will visit Rafah border today. Earlier during his Cairo visit, the UN High Commissioner said a solution to end the violence in Gaza is really important. Turk is in the region to engage with government officials, civil society actors, victims and UN colleagues on the human rights situation in the region. He will be traveling to Amman on Thursday.
It's the 1 month anniversary of this incredible escalation of violence that we have seen. I'm, of course, from a human rights perspective, extremely worried about the situation, about what is happening, and it is really important that a solution is found to end the violence and to get out of this horrible, horrible humanitarian and human rights situation for what's happening in Gaza.
Well, safety of the hostages taken by Hamas is under a question mark while families demand for a quick action from the government. Our DD India correspondent reports from Tel Aviv.
It's been more than a month since the horrendous attacks by Hamas took place on Israel. Hamas that day not only killed people, but took 242 of them hostages, many of them elderly, small children, people of all ages, even Israeli soldiers, and also many of them, more than half of them, according to the IDF estimates, foreign nationals. While efforts are on to get the hostages released, there are Qatar-based mediated negotiations happening, but without much success. Only 5 hostages have been released so far. I am right now in a place called Hakiria, which is right outside the military camp, the Rabin military camp here in Tel Aviv, and also the Ministry of Defense, the Israeli Ministry of Defense. The families of the people are getting restive. The chants here are get them back home now, get our people back. People are getting restive. There were protests outside Benjamin Netanyahu's homes, and their stories are really heart-wrenching while they ask them to put the pressure on their government to get their loved ones back. Amrit Pal Singh for DD India in Hakiria, Tel Aviv.
And now to updates on Russia-Ukraine war now. A Russian-installed official in the eastern region of Ukraine said 6 people were killed in shelling in Donetsk by Ukrainian forces. The Russian-appointed head of the region, Denis Pushilin, said 11 more people were wounded in the incident as per the preliminary data. Also, Ukrainian artillery soldiers fired rockets from makeshift Grad launchers at the front line in Zaporozhye region on Tuesday. The army unit has equipped pickup trucks with rocket launch pipes from Soviet-era Grad systems, claiming that this makeshift system offers greater mobility and flexibility than conventional launchers. Ukraine has retaken a few small villages in the southeastern Zaporozhye region, but the progress has been very small. Moving on, a presidential decree said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has proposed extending an export ban on Ukrainian natural gas for the whole of 2024. The decree urges Ukraine's government to enhance its gas transmission system capacity to ensure natural gas import and storage in underground facilities. Earlier, Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said Ukraine was ready to provide foreign energy traders with up to half of its underground gas storage capacity of 30 billion cubic meters. The largest state-owned gas producer, Naftogaz, said the country intended to increase gas production in 2023 to 19.1 billion cubic meters. And the U.S. Army needs Congress to approve $3.1 billion to buy 155mm of artillery rounds and expand production to quickly replace stocks depleted by shipments to Ukraine and now Israel. The U.S. and allies have sent more than 2 million rounds of 155 ammunition to Ukraine and has also sent the artillery to Israel. The chief weapons buyer for the army, Doug Bush, said supplemental funding would build artillery production facilities across many states. He added the funding will expand production lines, strengthen the American economy, and create new jobs. NATO allies condemned a decision by Russia on Tuesday to withdraw from the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe, a key post-Cold War agreement, and said they would suspend its operation in response. Russia formally withdrew from the security treaty, which limited key categories of conventional armed forces, blaming the United States for undermining post-Cold War security with the enlargement of the NATO military alliance. The United States said it would suspend treaty obligations effective from December 7th. Russia suspended participation in the treaty in 2007 and halted active participation in 2015. Well, after attending G7 meet and other meetings in the West Asia to advance efforts to support a free and open Indo-Pacific region, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is visiting South Korea, with discussion most likely on deepening military relationship between Russia and North Korea. It's his first visit to South Korea since Yoon Suk-yeol became president last year. Here's Andrew Wood in Hong Kong reporting for more.
The United States, Japan and South Korea have already condemned North Korea for supplying arms and ammunition to Russia for use in Ukraine. South Korea itself is actually quite a big producer and exporter of armaments. So far, Seoul says that it doesn't want to supply arms to countries that are at war. So this might be an area where Mr. Blinken might want to try to change the Seoul's president's, the South Korean's president's mind. Because after all, more armaments for Ukraine would probably help the country to fight back against Russia. There's also the perennial issue of North Korea. Back in August, Mr. Blinken said that if Beijing did not help to try to denuclearize North Korea, then America would have to strengthen its alliance with Japan and South Korea. And it certainly seems to be doing that. It's done that over the past month or so. There's much more cooperation between these two US allies in, well, virtually in sharing information about North Korea and also about the possible threats from China as well. So this also might be some maneuvering as well before the big meeting next week that's expected between President Xi Jinping and President Joe Biden in San Francisco on the sidelines of the APEC Forum for Pacific Rim countries in San Francisco. In Hong Kong, I'm Andrew Wood, reporting for DD India.
And now let's take a look at stories around the world today. A second earthquake measuring 7.0 struck the Banda Sea in Indonesia minutes after the first quake of 6.9 magnitude hit the region. The quake was 370 kilometers southeast of Ambon, Indonesia, and with an estimated depth of 146 kilometers, according to the European Mediterranean Seismological Center. So far, there was no tsunami threat from the earthquake. Japan plans to issue its first climate transition bonds with fixed coupon rates from February next year. A final announcement of the details will be made in early December. Transition bonds help heavy industries to move towards net zero emissions. The government of Japan plans to issue transition bonds worth $133 billion over a period of 10 years. Deforestation in Colombia's Amazon is forecast to have fallen 70% in the first 9 months of 2023 from the year-ago period. Government says environmental policies are paying dividends, but dry weather due to El Nino phenomena could cause a deforestation spike at the close of 2023. The majority of Colombia's deforestation occurs in the Amazon. Well, millions of Australians were left without a phone or internet service on Wednesday after the country's second-largest telecommunication provider, Optus, experienced an unexplained nationwide outage. The outage crippled payment systems and online operations and led to transport delays. Hospitals and emergency services across the country were also hit by the outage. Optus said some services across its fixed line and mobile networks were gradually being restored, but gave no estimated time for a full restoration of its services. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Donald Trump's daughter heads to Manhattan courthouse for fraud trial. The 42nd edition of the Sharjah International Book Fair presents an extraordinary celebration of literature, culture, and global influences. S4S Technologies awarded prestigious Earthshot Prize for its solar-powered food trial.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, Donald Trump's daughter is due to testify in her father's fraud trial on Wednesday. Ivanka Trump is expected to appear in a Manhattan courthouse to give evidence in the civil case. The former president of the United States is accused of inflating his wealth to secure better loans from banks. He denies any wrongdoing, calling the trial politically motivated. Sally Patterson reports from New York for more.
Ivanka Trump is not a co-defendant in this civil fraud trial. She's instead listed as a witness in the case after her team successfully argued that claims against her were too old. But they couldn't get her out of the case completely. She's being brought to New York City to give evidence, just as her father, Donald Trump, and brothers have been forced to do over the past 2 weeks. The case is being brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. She alleges the former president and his co-defendants committed repeated fraud by inflating assets to secure better loans and insurance policies. Now, Judge Arthur Engeron has already ruled Trump is liable for fraud. Now he, and he alone, as there's no jury in this case, is deciding how much Trump will have to pay in damages. The New York Attorney General also wants to cancel Trump's business licenses in her state, and that could see him lose control of his properties here. Trump has called the trial a scam, saying it's a ploy by his political opponents. During his own testimony on Monday, tensions were high, and the judge threatened to dismiss him from the witness stand. Now, even though Ivanka left the Trump Organization in 2017, prosecutors argue she remains financially and professionally intertwined with the company. Her lawyers dispute that, saying she's being needlessly forced to testify in order to harass her and her father. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Well, moving on, 5 Republican presidential candidates will face each other on Wednesday in the party's third primary debate. Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie and Tim Scott have all qualified to appear, but the current frontrunner in the race, Donald Trump, has once again chosen not to take part. DD India's US correspondent Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
2 of the 5 candidates who've made it to the debate stage in Miami are Indian American. But former US Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, and businessman Vivek Ramaswamy are still lower in the polls compared with frontrunner Donald Trump, and still behind his closest competitor, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. With GOP primary voting starting in January, so only a couple of months away, Trump's rivals are hanging on to viability by a thread. But the stakes at Wednesday's debate are particularly high for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, who are in a cage match for second place behind Trump in Iowa, which is the first state to vote. Haley has enjoyed a significant, though not huge, burst of support in recent polling, in part thanks to previous debate performances. But another Indian American and her rival, Vivek Ramaswamy, is close behind her. His performance in the first debate saw him increase in the polls. DeSantis has struggled to maintain his early positioning as the major Republican alternative to Donald Trump, and he'll be trying to reignite that initial excitement. But the former president, who remains the front-runner in the Republican primary, is skipping the debate, which is taking place less than 110 kilometres from his residence at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Instead, he'll headline a rally in South Florida as counter-programming. He also missed the first two debates. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
Well, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and like-minded other parties enforced another round of 48-hour road rail waterway blockade across Bangladesh from today. The blockade is to mount pressure on the government to step down and hold the next election under a non-partisan administration. The blockade started at 6 a.m. today and will end at 6 a.m. on Friday. The fresh agitation was announced on the last day of the opposition's 48-hour nationwide blockade, which had been marked by widespread incidents of violence, including clashes with police and torching and vandalizing vehicles. Also, Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Day celebrated in Dhaka on Tuesday. The High Commission of India in Dhaka organized the function. Bangladesh's Agriculture Minister, Dr. Mohammad Abdur Razak, graced the occasion as the chief guest. Addressing the event, High Commissioner Pranay Verma said that as one of India's closest development partners, Bangladesh occupies an important place in the ITEC program. He further said that the ITEC alumni in Bangladesh showcased the strong bonds of friendship between India and Bangladesh. Around 180 ITEC alumni from all walks of life, besides distinguished guests, shared their experiences. A small cultural event culminated the program. And the 42nd edition of the Sharjah International Book Fair is currently underway, delivering an extraordinary celebration of literature, culture and global influences. Organized by the Sharjah Book Authority, the event is taking place from November 1st to 12th at the Sharjah Expo Centre. Under the theme We Speak Books, SIBF 2023 is bringing together an illustrious books with global influencers, including Nobel Prize laureates and top-selling authors from around the world. The 12-day agenda is a comprehensive cultural, creative and entertaining extravaganza. Well, ahead of Diwali, there's no respite for residents in India's capital as the air quality in Delhi continued to remain in the severe category on Wednesday as per the Central Pollution Control Board. The Delhi government has also decided to implement the odd-even road rationing scheme to control the vehicular movement on the roads. In the wake of the worsening air quality in Delhi National Capital Region, the Supreme Court on Tuesday sternly directed the governments of Punjab, Rajasthan and Haryana to take immediate steps to stop stubble burning by farmers in the state, which the court said was one of the major contributors to air pollution. And in a groundbreaking initiative, S4S Technologies, based in India, has been awarded the prestigious Earthshot Prize for its solar-powered food dryer that is helping rural farmers combat food waste and increase their income. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into this transformative initiative. S4S Technologies, a company based in India, has developed a solar-powered food dryer that helps rural farmers prevent food waste and increase their income. Prince William hosted the Earthshot Prize award ceremony in Singapore, where S4S Technologies was one of the 5 winners. The company aims to empower female farmers by providing them with an assured additional income and preventing food wastage.
S4S is creating impact in 3 ways. First is that we are preventing the food from getting wasted. Second, this is done using the power of sun, using a clean tech technology. Third is that we are empowering rural female farmers, giving them an assured additional income and also making them better decision makers in their families as well as the communities.
The lack of storage facilities in India has led to significant food waste, and S4S Technologies is tackling this issue by buying back dehydrated produce from the farmers.
So these are the smaller bits of ginger that used to be wasted, but now we cut it up and dry it with the solar drying machine. When it's dry, we send it to S4S, which has given us the chance to sell more produce and earn more money. It's changed our lives. I use the money to pay for school for my children as well as running the house.
The company is now working with 3,000 smallholder farmers and selling their produce to major food producers like Sodexo, Nestle and Unilever, among others. This innovative solution exemplifies the potential for low-tech, sustainable interventions to address pressing global challenges. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. The Jammu and Kashmir Police's Special Investigation Agency on Wednesday raided multiple locations in the Union Territory. The raid, conducted in a terror funding case, is carried out in pursuance of search warrants issued by the Special Court. A car plunged into Visvesvaraya Canal in Mandya district of Karnataka. 5 people died in the accident. The accident occurred when the driver of the car tried to avoid hitting a couple on a bike and veered off the road. Rescue teams reached the spot and pulled out the bodies from the canal. All of them were returning from a function in Mysuru. And on to sports news now. 2019 champions England, who are out of the World Cup, will now set sights on restoring their pride and secure a berth in the 2025 Champions Trophy when they face a plucky Netherlands in the World Cup in Pune on Wednesday. Moving on to national games in Goa. And moving on to national games in Goa, square martial arts has been included in the medal category for the first time in the 37th national games. Square martial arts originated in Kashmir. Square means speed in Pashtun. DD India's Suchitra Bharadwaj speaks to Director of Competition Mir Nazar Ahmed regarding the sport and its next target.
Sir, how do you feel? First time in the medal category and a game that is originated in our own nation.
Yeah, we are highly feel the proud moments when this martial art has been included in the medal event in 37 national games. We are waiting since long, from 2016 we are waiting that this sports will be included. Finally, the Goa government has taken the step and come forward. We are highly thankful to the Chief Minister of the Goa and the Sports Minister of Goa.
Do you think that including it in the medal category in the national games will increase its popularity? And it has to increase because this is from our own country.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely it will be increase the standard of the game. It will be increase the popularity of the game. In coming days, you will see the more tough competitions and polished players will come out who will give the medals for our nation.
This is a sport that is originated in J&K, so it's all the more important for the J&K youth to be connected with square martial arts.
Yeah, it is the foremost duty of the parents, also of the society, to involve their wards, involve their children in the sports so that they will remain away from the drugs and other bad habits. If we will adopt our own martial art, our own culture, that will be better than adopt the other countries' martial art.
What is your next target you want to achieve for square martial arts?
Now our next is the inclusion this in Asian Games, and we have already approached the OCA, Olympic Council of Asia, and we are expecting that in next coming days we will get a good news.
So square martial art is now in the medal category in the national games, and people related to this sport now want to see this go at Asian level. With camera person Sumit Dhiman, this is Suchitra reporting for DD India from Goa.
Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. Well, let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.